Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to document a single cycle of a method called market DNA, and we're applying it to gold, also known as XAU/USD. Our goal here is simple, to give you a clear, visual, phase-by-phase narration of how this proprietary geometric system works, based purely on the provided documentation. We're just observing what happened. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to follow this cycle through 6 distinct sections, starting with the initial setup, walking through a few key events, and finishing up with a performance and final review. Let's get into it. So this specific case study covers a cycle that's been identified as XAU-14. Our job here is just to walk through the documented events exactly as they unfolded. And before we go any further, we have to make this crystal clear. What you're about to see is not financial advice, not at all. All of this analysis is purely for documentation and public verification. We're just observing a method in action. All right, let's start at the very beginning. We're moving into phase 1, which is all about the setup. Think of this as the initial blueprint for the entire cycle. So here's the chart from October 27th, 2025. You can see right here that the price has just reached the primary entry level, which is clearly labeled M. This is what kicks the whole thing off. Now, the plan actually defines 2 entry levels right from the start. There's the primary entry at M, which we just saw, but there's also a secondary optional entry at P crack. That one is there as part of the overall risk management strategy. And this is what's really fascinating. The risk parameters are all defined upfront before anything else happens. You can see the key figures from the plan right here, based on a hypothetical capital of $100,000. So, how are the trade sizes actually determined? Well, the documentation is very specific, and I'll read it directly. Both trade sizes are calculated using the hypothetical capital, the investor's maximum allowed drawdown, the third triangle domain percentage, the risk coefficient, and the contract size. The plan doesn't just stop at entries. It also outlines 3 potential price targets for the cycle to aim for. You've got target 1 at the mirror line, target 2 at apex N, and finally target 3, all the way up at the top of the trapezoid. And this chart just brilliantly illustrates the 2 potential profit scenarios based on those entry levels. In scenario 1, if only the primary M entry is triggered, the expected profit is $1,052. But if the secondary PC entry also gets hit, well, that potential profit jumps to $2,095. Okay, so the plan is set, the cycle is underway, and now we get to our first key observable event. This is what the documentation calls phase 2. Here we go. On November 10th, you can see the price moves up and makes contact with a predefined geometric line. This specific structure is labeled the delayed mirror. And the documentation records the exact price of that contact at $4,076. Just a simple, observable fact. And things move quickly. Right after that mirror contact, the price hits another major milestone. This brings us to what's called phase 3. So on that very same day, November 10th, right after touching the mirror line, the price continued to climb and reached this point, apex N of triangle 3. The price at that N level was $4,166. This event officially completed phase 3 of the cycle. And it's noted that at this stage, only that first trade from the M level had been opened. All right, we're on to the final phase of this documented cycle. Let's see how it all wrapped up in phase 4, the cycle completion. So on December 12th, the price continued its journey up through that trapezoid structure. And as you can see, it finally reached the upper boundary. This action fulfilled all the conditions of scenario 1 that were laid out in the initial plan. Okay, now for the part everyone wants to see. How did the actual results compare to what was expected in the plan? Let's get into the final performance review. This comparison is the crucial point. The realized return was 1.05%, which perfectly matched the plan. But look at this. The max drawdown was only 0.23%. The plan allowed for up to 5%, so the actual risk taken was significantly lower. The cycle did run a little longer than projected, 45 days instead of 38, but all in all, a very close match. And to put a final number on it, the realized profit was $1,052. That, once again, perfectly matches the forecast for scenario 1 that we saw back in phase 1. Before we sign off, it is absolutely essential that we reiterate these disclaimers. This presentation is strictly for informational and documentation purposes. It is not, and I repeat, not financial advice. So we have now observed the entire life cycle of one market DNA cycle, from the initial setup right through to completion. All the data is now part of the public record for this model. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will be observed in the next documented cycle?